Single dad Daniel Cross never expected to find a poor little girl abandoned in a wheelchair in the middle of a cold American rainstorm. But that night, while driving home from a late shift, his headlights cut through the downpour and locked onto something that made his heart jolt. A motionless child, drenched, shaking, and staring straight ahead as if she'd given up on life. Water rushed around her wheels. Her thin clothes clung to her skin. She didn't call out. She didn't move. She just sat there, alone. Daniel jumped out, shouting over the storm, but the girl only lifted her trembling hand toward him. Weak, terrified, desperate. And when he leaned closer, she whispered a line that made his stomach twist. "Please, don't let him find me." Before Daniel could ask who she meant, a pair of headlights appeared far down the road, slowing. Watching. And in that split second, Daniel realized this wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of something he wasn't ready for. "Before we go deeper, tell me, where are you watching this from?" Daniel Cross wasn't a man who scared easily. Life had already beaten him in ways most people never saw, losing his wife to cancer, raising his 10-year-old daughter Emily alone, and working long hours at a small-town auto shop just to keep the lights on. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of the little girl in the wheelchair. He carried her into his truck, wrapped her in his work jacket, and drove home with his heart racing the entire way. Rain hammered against the windshield, but all Daniel could focus on was her fragile breathing and the way her fingers clutched the edge of the seat like she expected to be dragged away at any moment. Her name, he learned in a whisper, was Ava. 7 years old. Quiet. Terrified. Emily met them at the door, sleepy-eyed but instantly alert when she saw the soaked wheelchair and the trembling girl in her father's arms. "Dad, who is she?" "I don't know," Daniel answered honestly. "But she needs us tonight." Emily didn't hesitate. She brought blankets, warm socks, even her own favorite pillow, soft, pink, and covered in stars. She placed it behind Ava's back with a gentle smile. Ava didn't speak, but her eyes softened, almost like she wasn't used to anyone touching her kindly. The Cross home wasn't fancy. A tiny rental house with peeling paint, second-hand furniture, and an old heater that worked only when it felt like it. But it was warm. Safe. And for a girl like Ava, that alone seemed to mean everything. When Daniel stepped away to grab a towel, he noticed something on Ava's wrist, a deep bruise, dark and swollen. Not from a fall. Not from an accident. The kind of mark that came from being grabbed too hard too many times. Before he could ask, Ava shrank back, pulling her hand under the blanket as if she'd done something wrong. Daniel swallowed the anger rising in his chest. "Hey," he said softly, "you're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you." Ava didn't answer. She only stared at the rain hitting the window, her shoulders trembling. Emily sat beside her on the couch, legs crossed, speaking in quiet, soft words the way only a gentle child could. Slowly, Ava responded, one nod then another. She allowed Emily to brush her hair behind her ear. She even took a sip of warm chai Emily made for her, tiny fingers wrapped around the mug like it was the only warmth she trusted. Daniel watched them from the doorway. Two girls, one lonely, one broken, suddenly finding comfort in each other. But just when the room felt calm, a voice crackled through Daniel's old radio on the kitchen counter. Breaking news. Authorities continue searching for a missing girl believed to be connected to an ongoing investigation involving an unnamed billionaire CEO. Details remain confidential. Daniel froze. Emily turned to him. "Dad, that sounds like Ava." Ava's entire body stiffened. Her eyes widened. She didn't look at Daniel, she stared at the doorway as if expecting someone to walk through it. Then she whispered, barely audible. "He'll come. He always comes." Before Daniel could ask who she meant, something outside caught his attention. A pair of headlights rolling slowly past the house. Then stopping. The engine didn't turn off. The lights didn't move. Someone was watching. Daniel killed the living room light with a shaky hand, leaving only the faint glow of the hallway lamp. His heartbeat thudded in his ears as he peeked through the blinds. The rain had slowed, but the streets still glistened with puddles. And there it was, the same pair of headlights he spotted earlier. Not moving. Not passing by. Just waiting. He stepped back from the window, forcing a steady breath. Whoever was out there, they weren't a random driver. They were watching the house. And Daniel didn't need a badge to know that wasn't normal. Not for a missing child, not for a sobbing girl whispering about someone finding her again. He turned toward the couch. Ava sat rigid, staring at the doorway. Emily hovered protectively beside her, one hand on her small shoulder. "Ava," Daniel crouched in front of her, "do you know that car?" She shook her head fast, too fast, then whispered, "He sends people. They watch." They always watch. Oh, police? Family? Someone you know? Ava's voice cracked. No, it's the man with the shiny watch. He said I wasn't supposed to be outside. I wasn't supposed to talk. Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. She wasn't just scared of someone. She was terrified of the idea of speaking itself. He couldn't push her right now. Instead, he grabbed the remote and turned the TV on just loud enough to drown out the thudding silence. Emily helped Ava sip more tea. Slowly, Daniel approached the window again, careful, quiet. The car was gone. Just vanished. His stomach dropped. Whoever had been watching knew how to avoid being seen. A little later, after Ava changed into dry pajamas Emily offered her, Daniel wheeled the girl to the small kitchen table for dinner. She barely touched the soup but kept glancing toward the door, like she expected someone to burst through it. Emily, trying to lighten the air, pulled up a chair and smiled. Ava, do you like drawing? I have markers. Or we can watch Disney movies if you want. Ava hesitated, then nodded, just barely. A tiny spark of trust. Daniel watched the exchange with a quiet ache. Emily had been lonely since her mother died. Seeing her so gentle, so protective, made something warm unfold in his chest. But that moment didn't last long. As Emily reached for the markers, Ava's sleeve slipped back. Daniel saw another bruise, this one smaller, fresh, shaped like fingers. His jaw clenched. He didn't want to scare her, but he gently lifted her wrist. Ava, who did this? She snatched her hand away and looked down. I'm not allowed to say, she whispered. He gets mad. Who gets mad? Pause. Then, softer than the rain outside. The man in the glass house. Daniel frowned. Glass house. Ava nodded. He said nobody could see me. Nobody could know I lived there. Not even the people who work for him. He said I would ruin everything. Daniel felt cold run up his spine. A glass house. Secrecy. Bruises. A terrified child abandoned in the rain. This was no normal situation. Before he could ask another question, Ava spoke again, almost in a trance. He said I wasn't supposed to walk outside. But I tried to leave. I fell down the stairs. He said it was my fault. Daniel inhaled sharply. You got hurt falling? She nodded. They put me in the wheelchair after. Daniel exchanged a look with Emily, wide-eyed, horrified. A child injured escaping? Hidden away? This wasn't just neglect. This sounded like something darker. He stepped away, pacing, trying to gather the storm of thoughts crashing in his mind. Police were the obvious choice, but Ava flinched every time she heard the word. Something told him that the people involved here weren't the kind you simply reported on a hotline. He needed more information. And then, out of nowhere, Ava whispered something that made Daniel stop mid-step. I know his watch. It's shiny, and it has diamonds on it. Emily whispered, Dad, that sounds expensive. Daniel didn't reply. A diamond watch could mean a lot of things, but combined with Ava's fear and that suspicious car, it painted a chilling picture. Later that night, after Ava finally fell asleep in Emily's room, Daniel stepped outside to check the yard. The rain had stopped completely. The night felt unusually still. Too still. As he moved toward the fence, he noticed something out of place. Muddy footprints, large ones, near the back gate. Not his. Not Emily's. Not Ava's. Someone had been there. And very recently. Daniel's instincts kicked in hard. He checked the locks twice. Closed every curtain. Kept the porch light on. Inside, Emily whispered from the hallway, Dad? Is something wrong? Nothing you need to worry about, he lied gently. Go back to bed. But she didn't. She peered toward the darkened window, hugging her blanket. Ava said he always finds her. What if he finds her here? Daniel didn't have an answer, at least not one she deserved. Instead, he placed a hand on her shoulder. I won't let anyone hurt her. Or you. Emily nodded slowly, trusting him completely. But as she walked back toward her room, Daniel glanced once more at the muddy footprints outside. Someone had been watching from the darkness. And whoever they were, they hadn't left for good. Daniel barely slept that night. Every creak in the house, every rustle of wind against the window made him snap awake. His mind kept replaying the muddy footprints by the back gate, the headlights parked outside, and Ava's trembling words about the man in the glass house. By morning, the sky was pale and quiet, but Daniel felt none of its calm. Ava sat at the kitchen table, her little hands wrapped around a bowl of cereal Emily had prepared. She kept looking over her shoulder, flinching at small sounds, her eyes tracking every shadow as if danger lived inside it. Emily sat across from her, trying to distract her with school stories and jokes. But even her bright voice felt swallowed by the tension inside the tiny home. Daniel placed his toolbox on the table. I fixed the loose lock on the back door. Nobody's coming in without me knowing. Ava didn't look convinced. He always knows where I am. Who? Daniel asked again. She stopped eating. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. The man with the shiny watch. Daniel fought the urge to push further. Instead, he knelt beside her. You're safe with us, he said softly. I promise. But Ava shook her head, tears forming. You don't understand, he doesn't stop. Emily grabbed Ava's hand. We won't let him hurt you. Ava finally met her eyes, and for the first time since she arrived, a flicker of hope surfaced. Emily's presence was becoming a lifeline, gentle, patient, protective. Daniel watched the girls, knowing whatever storm was coming, he was now fully responsible for both of them. A few hours later, Daniel dropped Emily off at school and returned home to check on Ava. She sat curled on the couch, drawing with the markers Emily had given her. He noticed, though, that she kept drawing the same thing over and over. A tall house made entirely of shining glass. Next to it, a man, tall, faceless, wearing a watch covered in little dots. Daniel felt his stomach twist. He tried again. Ava, what happened before I found you? She froze. Her shoulders trembled. Her pencil dropped. I wasn't supposed to go outside, she whispered. He said I ruined everything. That I wasn't supposed to be seen. Daniel sat beside her slowly. Seen by who? She shook her head violently. I can't say. You're not in trouble. No, she said, eyes glistening. I'll be punished. Daniel's breath caught for a moment. That wasn't normal fear. That was conditioned fear. He reached for the drawing, tracing the outline of the glass house. Is this where you lived? Ava nodded hesitantly. Who lived there with you? Another pause. A long one. Then in a tiny voice, my mom, before. Daniel swallowed. Before what? She cried a lot, Ava whispered, staring at her drawing. She said the man wasn't who he pretended to be. She was scared all the time. She told me never to go into his office. His office? Did something happen to her? Daniel asked carefully. Ava's lip trembled. One night she didn't come out. He said she was sleeping. But she didn't wake up in the morning. Daniel felt his chest tighten. Ava, did you see something? A drop of silence fell between them. Heavy. Suffocating. Then she whispered, he told me she fell. But I heard shouting. And glass breaking. And then, she never came back. Daniel blinked slowly. This wasn't some custody issue. This wasn't runaway behavior. This was a nightmare. A child trapped. A mother gone. A powerful man inside a glass mansion. Daniel stood abruptly. Ava, I need to know, did someone hurt your mother? Her eyes filled instantly. She covered her mouth with both hands and shook her head, but tears streamed down her cheeks, betraying the truth she was too afraid to speak. He wrapped an arm around her and let her cry against his chest. That afternoon, while Ava napped on the couch, Daniel stepped onto the porch to clear his head. The air smelled of wet asphalt and lingering storm. He was about to return inside when a strange sound caught his ear. A faint click, like metal lightly touching metal. He turned toward the driveway. A small object lay behind his truck tire, thin, metallic, barely visible. Daniel picked it up and froze. A GPS tracker. His pulse spiked. He checked under the frame of the truck. Another tracker. Someone had been monitoring him since he picked Ava up. Someone knew exactly where he lived. He rushed inside and locked the door. Panic tightened his chest for the first time in years. Not because he feared for himself, because Emily and Ava were in danger. He hurried to the window and scanned the street. A black SUV turned the corner slowly. The same one as last night. But this time it didn't pass the house. It stopped. The tinted window rolled down halfway. A camera lens pointed directly at his front door. Daniel stepped back fast. Ava, he shouted. She jerked awake, frightened. What happened? Get into Emily's room. Now. She obeyed instantly, fear consuming her small frame. Daniel peered through the blinds again. The SUV was still there. Still recording. Still watching. Then, as if on cue, another car appeared from the opposite direction. Silver, polished, expensive, too expensive for this neighborhood. It slowed, then stopped directly behind the SUV. Two vehicles. Two. Daniel's stomach twisted. Someone was tightening the circle around them. And whoever they were, their message was clear. They weren't leaving without the little girl in the wheelchair. Next move? Daniel didn't know yet. But one thing was certain. The people searching for Ava weren't going to knock. They were going to take. Stop for a moment, you watching this right now. Does any of this remind you of your own life? Tell me below, and when you're ready, stay with me, let's continue the story. Daniel didn't wait for them to make the first move. He grabbed Ava's wheelchair, locked the door behind them, and pushed her down the hallway. Stay quiet, sweetheart. Don't make a sound. Ava nodded, already trembling. He peeked through the side window. The black SUV's door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, broad, wearing a black coat. No expression. No hesitation. Behind him, the silver luxury sedan's door opened as well. Another man merging into the shadows of Daniel's small yard. Two strangers. Working together. Closing in on the house like they'd done it 100 times before. Daniel felt his pulse thundering, but his voice stayed calm as he whispered, Ava, listen to me. If anything happens, Emily knows where to hide you. I won't let anyone take you. I promise. Ava clutched the armrest so tightly her knuckles turned white. Then, bang, bang, bang. A fist pounded on the front door. Daniel Cross, a deep voice yelled. Open the door. Daniel stiffened. They knew him by name. Another voice followed, smooth and cold. We're here for the child. Make this easy. Ava whimpered. Daniel instantly placed a protective hand on her shoulder. He stepped quietly to the living room. Through the peephole he saw both men. No badges, no uniforms. Just power in their posture and confidence in their threat. Leave us alone. Daniel shouted through the door. You have no right to be here. You have something that belongs to our employer, the first man replied. Bring her out now. Ava cried out. They work for him, please don't make me go. Daniel's blood boiled. He didn't know who him was, but he knew one thing. No child should sound that terrified. The pounding stopped. A silence fell, thick, dangerous. Then the cold voice returned, softer this time. Last chance, Mr. Cross. Daniel knew what came next. He grabbed Ava's hand. Back room now. He wheeled her down the hallway, heart slamming against his ribs. Halfway there. Crash. The front door splintered open. The men were inside. Ava screamed. Daniel spun around, putting himself between her and the attackers. The larger man lunged first, grabbing Daniel by the shirt and shoving him against the wall. Pain shot through Daniel's shoulder, but he didn't falter. He swung back, punching the man square in the jaw. The hit barely staggered him. Move, the second man ordered, stepping toward Ava's wheelchair. Daniel rushed forward, tackling him from the side. They slammed into the hallway wall, knocking a picture frame to the floor. Ava covered her ears, sobbing uncontrollably. Don't touch her. Daniel roared, swinging again and again, adrenaline giving him strength he didn't know he had. But two armed men against one exhausted single father wasn't a fair fight. Within seconds, the larger man grabbed Daniel, pinning his arms behind his back. The other man straightened his coat and walked calmly toward the terrified girl. Ava's screams echoed through the whole house. Stop. Daniel yelled, struggling helplessly. She's a child. She's not your concern, the man replied flatly. She's a liability. Ava shook violently in her chair. Please, please don't send me back. I'll be good. I'll be good, I promise. Daniel felt his heart break. The cold man crouched beside her. Come now, Ava. You know running away is not allowed. She sobbed harder. Please don't, please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. As he reached for her arm, Daniel tore himself free with a burst of desperate strength, slamming into the man and knocking him off balance. Don't touch her, he shouted. This time, the blow landed hard enough to send the man stumbling. But the larger man grabbed Daniel from behind again, twisting his arm painfully. Daniel gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. The smaller man straightened himself, breathing heavily. You're making this much more difficult than it needed to be. He reached for Ava again. She shrieked. No. Please don't send me back. He hurt my amon. The entire room froze. Even the men stopped moving. Daniel stopped struggling. The men exchanged a shocked glance. Ava covered her mouth, realizing what she just confessed. Then the front door frame filled with a shadow. A tall figure stepped inside. Umbrella dripping. Suit immaculate. Watch gleaming with diamonds under the hallway light. Ava's eyes widened in horror. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. And the two armed men instantly straightened, as if their real boss had just arrived. The man stepped fully into the room. His presence was powerful. Controlled. Dangerous. This was not hired muscle. This was the person everyone feared. When he spoke, his voice was calm, too calm. Ava, he said, You weren't supposed to say that. Ava burst into tears. Please, don't make me go with you. Daniel stepped forward, ignoring the pain in his arm. Who are you? The man didn't look at him. Didn't answer. He kept his cold gaze locked on the crying girl. The diamond watch on his wrist glittered. A match to her drawings. A match to her nightmares. A match to the man she feared more than anything. Ava whispered through trembling lips. Daddy, please don't hurt me again. Daniel's world spun. Her father. A billionaire. A man with power, reach, and secrets. The stranger finally turned his eyes to Daniel. And with a chilling calm he said, You've made a very big mistake. Before Daniel could react, he lifted his hand. And the men closed in. Everything went silent. For a moment the world felt carved out of ice. Ava's sobs, Daniel's ragged breathing, the billionaire's cold stare, everything hung in the air like time had suddenly forgotten how to move. Then the billionaire, Marcus Hale, shifted his umbrella aside and stepped closer. Let him go, Marcus ordered. The two men released Daniel instantly. But instead of attacking again, Marcus raised one hand to silence everyone. He looked nothing like a man who'd stormed into a stranger's home. He looked like someone who believed the world answered to him. Daniel, chest heaving, stood protectively in front of Ava. No one is taking her, he growled. Marcus finally looked at him with the hollow calm of someone used to snuffing out problems with a single command. You have no idea what you're involved in, he said. Then explain it, Daniel shot back. Marcus didn't. Instead, he stared at the tear-streaked girl in the wheelchair, his daughter. Ava, he said quietly, come here. She recoiled so violently her wheelchair bumped into the wall. No. No, please, don't make me go. Marcus's jaw tightened. It wasn't anger. It was something Daniel didn't recognize. Fear? Guilt? Pain? One of the guards stepped forward. Sir, she's unstable. We should. Marcus raised his hand again. Say one more word and you're done. Both men froze. Daniel blinked. He hadn't expected that. Marcus stepped closer to Ava, but she flinched, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Daddy, don't hurt me. Daniel felt something inside him snap. If you touch her, I swear. Marcus's voice cut through him like a blade. You think I hurt her? Daniel didn't back down. She's terrified of you. Look at her. Marcus did. And something cracked. His voice lowered, strained now. Ava, I never laid a hand on you. Ever. She shook her head furiously. You let him hurt me. You watched. You did nothing. Him. Daniel's gaze narrowed. Who's him? Marcus looked away, jaw trembling. My brother, he said. Both guards stiffened. Daniel felt the floor tilt beneath him. Your brother? Marcus nodded once, the control in his voice breaking apart in real time. He wasn't supposed to be near her, Marcus said, his voice shaking. I told him. Again and again. But he didn't listen. And when I found out... He stopped. For the first time he looked human. I tried to separate them, he whispered. But he threatened to expose things that could destroy my company, my reputation. He used everything against me. I thought hiding her would keep her safe. Ava let out a broken cry. No, it didn't. Marcus flinched like she'd stabbed him. Daniel felt anger rise. So your solution was to lock her away in some glass mansion? Away from everyone? From help? From safety? Marcus's shoulders sank, heavy, hollow. I failed her, he said. I know that. The words came out cracked. Daniel stepped closer, still blocking Ava. Then why send these men? Why hunt her down? Marcus inhaled sharply. Because my brother found out she escaped. He sent his own people to find her first. If he gets her, Daniel, he won't bring her home. He'll make her disappear. Ava whimpered, shrinking into herself. Daniel felt the room tilt again, but this time with a cold understanding. This wasn't about custody. This wasn't about a runaway child. This was a billionaire trying, and failing, to protect his daughter from a monster wearing the same last name. Marcus turned to his guards. You broke into this house without my approval. You touched that child. You're done. Get out. Sir, one protested. Get out, Marcus repeated, his tone lethal. They left without another word. The house fell into a thick, uneasy silence. Daniel didn't lower his guard. So what now? Marcus looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. A man stripped of power, stripped of control, standing in a stranger's home with guilt dripping from his voice. I'm not asking to take her, Marcus said quietly. Not tonight. Not yet. Ava lifted her head, startled. Marcus sank to one knee, something Daniel doubted he'd ever done for anyone in his life. Ava, he whispered, voice shaking, I'm so sorry. I didn't protect you. I didn't protect your mother. I failed both of you. Tears built in his eyes, but he blinked them away, too afraid to let them fall. Ava stared at him through tears. You let him hurt us. Marcus nodded slowly, painfully. And I will spend the rest of my life making it right. Daniel felt something shift in the room, a fragile, trembling shift. But Ava's voice sliced it apart. You didn't come when I screamed. Marcus's breath hitched like he'd been punched. I know, he whispered, breaking entirely. I know. And I'll never forgive myself. Silence. Then a small, trembling voice. Are you really here to take me? Marcus shook his head. No. I'm here to protect you. Daniel finally stepped aside, giving space. Ava touched her father's hand, just with the tip of her fingers, like testing a ghost. Marcus broke. He covered his face, shoulders shaking with a sound that wasn't power or wealth or control. It was grief. Human grief. Daniel looked away, giving them a moment. But the fragile peace shattered in an instant. When a car engine roared outside. Not just any engine. A high-performance one. Daniel rushed to the window. A third vehicle, a dark armored SUV, sped down the street and skidded to a stop right in front of the house. Marcus snapped to his feet. His face drained of color. That's not mine. The back door of the SUV opened. A man stepped out. Tall, sharp suit, cold eyes, and on his wrist, a matching diamond watch. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. My brother. The man smirked, lifting a hand toward the house. And more men stepped out behind him. Daniel's breath caught. Ava choked on a sob. Marcus whispered. He found her. The front yard filled with shadows moving toward the house. Fast, organized, armed. And this time, they weren't here to talk. The police sirens faded long after the chaos ended, leaving the neighborhood wrapped in a strange, exhausted calm. It took every officer, every flashing light, and every eyewitness statement to piece together what truly happened. Marcus Hale's brother and his men were arrested on multiple charges: kidnapping, assault, obstruction of justice, and evidence tampering in the death of Ava's mother. Daniel stood outside his small home, arms folded, watching as the last patrol car rolled away. The night air felt different, lighter, like a pressure he'd been carrying for days had finally eased. Inside the house was warm, safe. And for the first time since Ava arrived, Daniel didn't fear anyone breaking down the door. Marcus Hale stood a few steps away from him, no longer the untouchable billionaire whose presence demanded silence. He looked like a man who had finally stopped running from himself. I owe you everything, Marcus said quietly. If you hadn't taken her in, if you hadn't protected her. His voice cracked. She'd be gone. Daniel shook his head. Any good man would have done the same. No, Marcus replied, eyes lowering. Most men wouldn't have risked their life for a child they didn't know. He paused, voice softening. You did. Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. Sometimes silence said more than words. Inside the living room, Ava slept on the couch under Emily's favorite blanket, her small face peaceful for the first time. Emily sat beside her, drawing quietly. When she noticed Daniel at the doorway, she whispered, She's safe now, Dad. Daniel smiled. Yeah, she is. A month passed. Then 2. Investigations wrapped up. Court hearings concluded. The world finally saw the truth. Ava wasn't a hidden scandal. She wasn't a burden. She was a child who had survived something unthinkable. Marcus stepped down as CEO temporarily, announcing he needed time to repair the damage done within his own home. News outlets called it a billionaire's redemption arc, but Daniel saw something simpler. A father trying, really trying, to earn his daughter back. Therapists worked with Ava weekly. Doctors helped her begin physical therapy so she could regain strength in her legs. And every single time she pushed herself, every time she gritted her teeth and said, again, Emily held her hand and cheered her on. Daniel watched them both grow stronger, one from trauma, one from compassion. One evening, Marcus arrived at the Cross home with a small box in hand. He stood at the doorway like any other nervous parent. May I come in? He asked. Daniel nodded. Emily let him sit beside Ava at the table. She watched him carefully, no longer terrified but cautious, guarded. Marcus opened the box. Inside was a silver necklace. A delicate charm shaped like a teardrop crystal. Ava gasped softly. It was your mother's, Marcus said gently. I kept it. I just didn't know how to give it back then. He took a breath. But I want you to have it now. Ava touched the necklace with trembling fingers. Daddy, do you still want me? Marcus's eyes filled instantly. I never stopped wanting you. I just didn't know how to keep you safe. But I promise you. His voice broke. I will spend the rest of my life being the father you deserve. Ava leaned into him slowly, hesitantly, until her forehead rested against his chest. It wasn't forgiveness. Not fully. But it was the beginning. Daniel watched quietly, emotion tightening his throat. Emily whispered, she needed that. He nodded. She needed all of this. 1 year later. Spring sunlight spilled across Daniel's backyard, warm and gentle. Emily and Ava chased each other through the grass, Ava using her wheelchair only part-time now. Her legs were getting stronger. Her laughter was louder. Her eyes brighter. A new ramp had been built at the porch. A new railing along the back steps. Subtle modifications Marcus had quietly arranged without ever flashing his wealth, respecting Daniel's pride. On Sundays Marcus joined them for barbecues. He never arrived with bodyguards anymore, just groceries and a bottle of lemonade Ava loved. Daniel flipped burgers while Marcus set the table. A year ago the idea of a billionaire in his backyard would have felt absurd. Today it felt normal. Safe. Family. When the girls finally settled down, Ava wheeled herself to the porch swing. She held her mother's necklace tightly and watched the sunset paint the sky in soft oranges and golds. Daniel sat beside her. Whatcha thinking about, kiddo? Ava smiled, small but real. That rain doesn't scare me anymore. Daniel's chest warmed. Why not? She looked at him, eyes glowing with gratitude that words couldn't contain. Because rain brought me to you. Daniel swallowed hard, blinking away the sting in his eyes. Ava rested her head on his arm. Emily joined her seconds later, hugging his other side. Marcus stepped onto the porch, watching all three of them with a soft, humbled expression. A broken family. A lonely family. A shattered family. Somehow pieced together by a storm, a stranger's kindness and a child's courage. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Ava whispered, sometimes, the people with nothing give the kind of love no money can buy. Daniel wrapped an arm around both girls and whispered back. And sometimes, the child the world tried to lose becomes the one who saves everyone. The sky faded into twilight. And their story, once filled with fear, ended in something far stronger. Hope. If this story meant something to you, consider subscribing. It helps me bring more moments like this to you.